I have with me Nicole Lovejoy. And those of you who are following know I'm Lynn Christian from Soul Salt, the founder of Soul Salt. And I specialize in coaching people who are reinventing their career or working identity, people who are recalibrating their leadership skills, and people who are rebooting their lives. And that means that there are many, many times where the work I do in life strategies match up and live very closely to the work that a therapist does. And so today I'm so excited to get to talk with Nicole Lovejoy. She's one of those treasures in my community that I refer people to constantly. And just to give our listening audience a little bit of background about you, Nicole, for just a few things I could name, you are an LCSW. You are also a trained therapist in hypnosis. Mm-hmm. You have a specialty with addictions and recovery, especially recovery with trauma like PTSD. You run women empowerment groups. I also know that you've started playing and enjoy meditation groups with men.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And then one of the things that I always earmark and listen for is you are one of those people that my clients go into and say, oh my goodness, Nicole is professional. She gets to the point. It's not traditional talk therapy. So what I've experienced with you, because I fully vetted you with my own work, my own personal work, and then send clients to you, the consistent theme is you get in, you get to the nuggets that we need to look at. You support us while we look at that and shift it. Sometimes you shift that with the hypnotherapy. Sometimes there are other things that occur that make the shift. But you're about business. So you're very professional. You're in and out, meaning you don't have to work with somebody for 12 months. You can. I mean, if we want to bite off a big chunk of work and work with you, we can work for you a year or 6 months. But I love sending people to you as a coach because I can put them on sabbatical leave and know they're going to come see you and really figure out some of the stuff that's holding them back. So is that a fair way to introduce you?
Oh, it's such an honor to be here, and what a beautiful introduction.
Okay, I hit the main points. So I want the audience to kind of know that our intention today, Nicole and I have prepared for this because we work in tandem to support similar clients, sometimes concurrently. And sometimes they take a sabbatical leave from coaching and go see Nicole. Sometimes Nicole sends them to me. So we're going to sort of talk through that difference. And in the coaching world, Nicole, a lot of people say coaching versus therapy. And what I like to look at it is, okay, they are different. But I often see in my world where it's coaching and therapy when needed. And I don't see it verse. I don't see us at odds with one another. Do you?
No, I would completely agree with you. I would say that some of the best work that I have done with my clients is when they have a team of people that can collaborate with one another and support them in their forward moving growth. And so absolutely I see it as, a part of the team.
Great. So let's get into it. Let's define what is therapy, what is coaching. Which do you want to address first?
Sure. So I would say that the therapy piece is more modeled after the medical community and the medical model. And so when somebody comes in for traditional therapy, my job as a clinician is to sit down with them, make an assessment, make a diagnosis. Based on that diagnosis, put together the most appropriate treatment plan for the symptoms and the diagnosis that we're working with. And oftentimes when we're looking at diagnosis, we're looking at maybe some severe depression or panic disorder or PTSD. And in that case, with therapy, I think that we would be addressing maybe past hurts, past trauma, and that is something that wouldn't necessarily be done in coaching. Coaching is more looking at is more goal oriented and moving forward and creating a really joyful life after you've done, or in combination of doing therapy work if necessary.
Right. Okay. So I'll segue off of that. A couple of keywords I heard you say: treatment plan diagnosis. Things
Yes.
I don't touch, I don't get close to. We don't do treatment. We don't do diagnoses. Uh, in my world, there are clients that you're currently working with that I am.
Yes.
So we have this concurrent team supporting them and coaching. I see people coming in who have an idea of what they want. And sometimes they can't even verbalize it or be really clear, but they know they want to go to the next level. And they don't know what that all entails, but they can feel it's out there. Sometimes they know. For instance, I have a CEO that just recently was in my office today, and we're going to announce this huge new job she has. It's a global CEO job for one of the biggest coaching companies in the world. And she came in with, I want to leave a legacy. This is probably going to be my last formal job. Where do I go? She was employed somewhere else. And we rebooted, recalibrated her leadership, and reinvented where she could work because she hasn't worked as a CEO for a coaching company. So, in that work that I do, people may have a very clear idea of where they're going to end up, or they may have more of a notion. And we create a strategic set of objectives, and then we fill in the blanks between where they are and where they want to be with exercises, homework, reading, logbook and journal pages, all kinds of things, but it's always independent like yours are to the individual. It's always unique. So no treatment plans, no diagnosis, but when I can feel that somebody is persistently stuck and spinning, and I've also had some informal training around picking up on trauma wounds, or indications of people being uh, endless victims. I know that there's something that needs to come to you to get healed. And I'm not a healer, so I don't send them to me. They send them to you for healing. They come to me for functionality of what can we lean into to go to the next level with. Even though you're taking them to the next level, there's no healing involved in my side. So that's kind of how I define the distinction. What do you define it as, the difference between therapy and coaching?
So I would say, I really like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and his theory is that once our basic needs are met, then as human beings we can have the ability and the desire for a better life. And so once those basic needs are met, such as our physical needs are met, our safety is met, then we can step into a space of wanting more for ourselves. And one of the areas that people can get snagged when before they can step into a space of wanting coaching is we all need to address those psychological needs. And where we can get snagged is if you, and I think the hallmark sign that you identified where somebody may be better shifted back towards therapy is if you find them getting stuck, if they're not being able to have forward motion. Then I think probing a little bit deeper and finding out what the underlying causes, and a lot of times this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's a need there that isn't getting met, and they need to go back and address that before they can move forward. And so that's where I would see shifting them into therapy. Some of the differences between therapy and coaching, I would say you're absolutely correct that with coaching, it's more goal-oriented exercises, all focused on creating a really joyful, fulfilling life. And therapy is definitely more the medical model and helping people address the underlying causes, depression, anxiety. And so the other piece the big difference I see is the way a therapist works with their clients versus a coach. Yeah. Myself as a clinician, I have very tight ethical responsibility to protect the therapeutic relationship. So with that being said, it would be inappropriate for me to have any kind of a friendship or relationship with a therapy client outside of therapeutic relationship. Whereas with coaching, it's the boundaries are more relaxed, and it wouldn't necessarily be inappropriate for me to meet up for a cup of coffee with a coaching client. But those boundaries are set in place to create a really safe container for the therapeutic process. And so I would say that that is another main difference between coaching and therapy.
It is. We have our own standard of ethics, and if you're a coach and you don't know what those are, please go to the International Coach Federation, the ICF.org, and find out what those code of ethics are. We still have confidentiality, that we both have to have confidentiality. We don't have HIPAA constraints. We can be friends with, although I'm rarely friends with clients I'm currently seeing. But I can grow a relationship that could turn into a friendship, but it's very difficult, and you know this, Nicole, in the dynamics that I'm not always the coach. And sometimes I have 3 friends that I have cultivated out of my practice. I started coaching in 1998. So, you know, a couple of decades here, because while we're recording this is the end of 2018. Out of that many years, only 3 people that I have maintained a friendship with, and I'm finding that 2 of them were able to make the jump into true friendship where it's give and take and reciprocity. But there was a period where they still kind of leaned into me like a coach, and I still kind of wore that coach distancing with them. And then one that is probably going to stay that way, just because there's not a lot of capacity for reciprocity, but it's a fun relationship, so I keep nurturing it. So that's a difference. Here's something else. You made the distinction, you get to the cause of why people may be stuck, or I like to call it the little swirling whirlpool. If people come in and we're still talking about the same concerns and they tend to be more on a personal side, or if it's a professional concern that has deep personal roots, we maybe someone feels like they're being sexually harassed at work, let's say. And if that has deep personal roots as well as a professional implication, there are outside people I need to refer that person to find out what are my rights, what do other people do. I might send them to you to find out how did I get in this position and what can I do about it. And then I might either let that person go, or if it's appropriate, keep working on a few of our objectives. But the difference is getting to the cause, getting to the cure, getting to a diagnosis or naming what it is that they're stuck on, versus you're doing okay, you're doing well, let's do exceptional, which is the coaching. You're doing okay, you're doing well, let's get to exceptional. And for you, it's sort of like, ooh, pit stop, or keep tripping over something, let me come and work on that.
I
Yes?
would agree. Yeah, I think that's beautifully said.
Okay, so coaches, again, if there's a consistent, persistent pattern, behavior, conversation, or activity that keeps occurring and the person is not progressing very quickly, probably therapy. My most pronounced case, Nicole, was an individual who came in, we had a great rapport, there was lots of support, we seemed to be going places, but as I charted the growth, it was not like this. It was tiny little ups and downs. And I finally got to a place where I challenged the client to go really big and connected them with somebody who was a thought leader in the industry that this client wanted to be a leader in. And they backed down, put on the brakes, made it my fault that I was pushing them. And I realized, oh, this is a therapy client. This person can't go. The reason that this is happening, this little incremental bit of growth, but not really an upward trajectory, is a therapy piece. And so I referred them to therapy. I think that doesn't happen very often, but when it does, do you have anything to say about that pattern?
Yeah, I think that when a coach is seeing a consistent pattern of as a therapist, I look through the lens of archetypal patterns, and one of the archetypal patterns that we all carry is the victim. And when the victim is out of balance, sometimes that's the only lens in which we can see through. And
Right.
so as a coach, if you're working with clients and they are not able to shift out of the victim, and some of the ways that you can recognize this is what you were saying, is when they are blaming, justifying their behaviors, minimizing behaviors that really need to be addressed, or in denial of behaviors that need to shift.
Yes.
Those are some cognitive distortions that you can identify that say, okay, there's something underlying that's going on that has to be addressed before this person can move into a different space.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to pick up on what you just said
Okay.
and put another lens on it from the coaching angle. Um, yes, I'm listening for people who are either stuck in the victim or the blame mode.
Yep.
They're playing a manipulative, either with me or with others, or they are addicted to fixing and they are playing what I call chicken shit with their own life. They'd rather default their own progress to help somebody else. And what they're missing is the power position of problem solving.
Yes.
And what I'm leaning into, segueing off of your words, is Bryn Collins' work in the emotional location work, where she says, there's those 5 emotional places: victim, blaming, playing, fixing, or problem solving, which then says to me, Nicole, and I think you kind of brought this up earlier, we need, as clients, as we look at our clients, both from a therapy and a coaching standpoint, I feel like it needs to be the and, not the verse. People don't come in black and white. I'm just a therapy client. I'm just a coaching client, because they can be both. We can team up. But there are times in people's lives when they are better suited to therapy and better suited to coaching.
Yes.
Some of the people who don't fit a coaching model are actually high functioning executives who are not willing to look at their own BS. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I can send them to you, I have one client right now, it's a high functioning entrepreneur, but what she's not doing is looking at her own relationship patterns of how she messes things up for the people around her. You can nail that one in a handful of your sessions as to, here are relationship patterns. This is where you lie, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you know when somebody, how would you say, Lynn, watch for these, because people they're going to be more therapy than coaching. What do I look for when I know somebody's not ready for coaching and they really are probably needing therapy? What should I watch for?
Okay, I would say some things to look out for. Anytime you run into somebody who is really depressed and dealing with suicidality, I would say active addiction. If somebody has any type of active addiction, they must treat that first before they can do any kind of coaching or recovery work.
Yes.
Yeah. Panic disorder, PTSD, anything that is impacting their life in a way that they're not able to manage and to be able to do what they've come to coaching for.
So when you say not able to manage, let's double click on that word manage. Give us more detail what you mean with that word.
So I would say when our maladaptive patterns or the addiction patterns are preventing us from being able to make any kind of changes in our lives, or when we're in self-destruct mode.
All right. Okay. So that's when somebody's not ready for coaching. When is somebody not appropriate for therapy?
So I would say one of the things that I look at as a clinician is the level of care of individual therapy, 1, maybe 2 times a week, enough support to be able to help the client move through the issues that we're addressing. And if I'm finding that they need more support, then it would be appropriate for me to refer them to either intensive outpatient, maybe some hospitalization for a while, to have them really receive more support to be able to address the issues that they're currently facing. The other thing is back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If they're dealing with things such as poverty issues, domestic violence issues, where their basic needs are being threatened, then what I would do is I would hook them up with social services and get them in a place where they're stable before we can launch in and do any therapy work.
Okay. This is really good for me to hear as a coach, and I hope the other coaches who are going to listen to this catch on to this. You're giving us a roadmap of what else there is available on your side of the spectrum in therapy versus coaching, because now we're going to use the verse, because
Yeah.
I suspect that when somebody's that far over, it's not therapy and coaching. I personally wouldn't want to be working with someone there because I'd be out of my league, and I probably would not be in my integrity taking a client with those kind of needs. Um, but I'm also hearing as coaches, to get that person to that point, we should not diagnose, because back to what you said earlier, we're not about treatment plans and diagnosis.
Right.
So sending someone to you to talk to you so that you could then refer them to appropriate places on that side of the spectrum is the wise thing to do at this point. Is that what I'm picking up that's kind of going underlying what you're saying?
Yes, and I think that something that would be important to advise your coaching clients is really look into the therapist to make sure that it's the appropriate fit. Therapy is such a broad umbrella that within the community, there are therapists that have specialties, and so it's really important to make sure that they're finding a therapist that specializes in what they're dealing with. It's important to find a therapist that is licensed, that has the necessary training to be able to provide the treatment that they're needing. Um, every client that comes through the door, I let them know, like, therapy works with the right therapist, and we need to make sure that this relationship is a good fit, not only for me but for you. And if at any point I feel like this isn't a good fit, then I'm going to do what I can to find the appropriate resources for you. And so I think that would be some really good advice for coaches, is to make sure that the therapist is a good fit,
Right.
given the circumstances.
Right. So I'm looking specifically for certain things to send to you. And in fact, this is what I've done up to this point, if this is helpful for our listening audience. Uh, my dear partner, bless her heart, is willing to take things that we need to work on into some of these therapy sessions, because I often see people who need couple therapy. I often see people who, especially CEOs that are like entrepreneurs and CEOs, that are dealing with some narcissism. So I have 3 to 4 vetted therapists that I have personally seen and worked with, from everything from EMDR, rapid eye therapy, to even your hypnosis in therapy, to make sure that when I'm sending people out, I'm sending them to somebody who is 80 to 90%, from my perspective, going to be a fit. And then I leave it up to you and the client. But not everybody I send you is a fit.
Right.
But I've done my homework to know who's in my community, who can do Skype sessions that can work with people outside, because my clients are international, and then taking the time to go see you, get results, and know what I'm experiencing, so then I know where to send them. Do you have any advice for coaches who might want to follow that pattern, what they could be doing that kind of segues on what you just said?
If they don't personally have any references or people that they refer to, Psychology Today is a great resource. That has therapists from all over the country, and they have bios, and so that would be a good place to start. The other thing that I would recommend is, if their client is wanting to use their insurance, most or a lot of therapists take insurances, and so the insurance would be a place for them to get, for their client to get a list of therapists that specialize in what they're dealing with. So their insurance will have a list of providers. So that would be another option as well. But I think the most important thing is having the client call up and kind of interview the therapist and make sure that it's a good fit,
Right.
and to maybe help them through that process so that they're not afraid to say, yeah, this isn't a good fit, um, and ask for recommendations.
Oh, that's such great advice. And Nicole, let's segue off of that into how our work is alike. For instance, one of the ways that you and I are alike is we do some discovery before we hire ourselves with someone. We both offer, I know you offer phone calls to see if somebody's totally qualified or one of your best key clients. I meet with clients and do the same thing. So we're both looking for right fit. We're looking for right relationship, because if we can't partner with this person because our work is so partnership related, we have no business working with them, right?
Right.
What other similarities do you see between therapy and coaching?
I would say that wellness is a continuum, and that on one end of the continuum is unhealthy, and that's where we would see some of the more severe mental disorders, and on the other end of the continuum is wellness and somebody who is very healthy. And I would say that there's an overlap in the middle where coaching and therapists overlap and work, and are able to do the same work. And so I would say that you may work with a client who could be struggling with some mild depression, and through the modalities of coaching are able to help pull them through that. Maybe their depression is situational, that they are not living their fullest life, and so by working with a life coach, they're able to meet those goals and get the support and the resources through coaching. um, and that would be something that I would also offer in therapy. And so I do think that there is an overlap.
Yeah, and I think that's increasing with my multiple brain integration certification and my conversational intelligence certification and my personal studies of neuroscience. If there is a mild depression, sometimes we can move that out, get the immune system working again, get the gut system up and going, uh, because the person just really needed some wind under their wings. However, I watch for depression specifically because if it's persistent, consistent, and getting people looped, I know that they need coaching and therapy or a sabbatical leave to deal with the therapist. So another place I'm wondering if we are similar. You're a little more this than some therapists, but I am big on having contact in between sessions because I am hired by retainer, which means, yes, we have our strategy session. And if I haven't heard from you in about a week on what you're doing with that, I'm going to ping you. And the expectation is you update me, or you update me before I ping you. And then we meet the following week to strategize again. So there's this element of home play, which is like homework, but I call it home play assignments. I don't see very many therapists doing that, but I know when I've worked with you, there are suggestions of things that we work on or we get ready for. It's not as heavily into the homework, but how would you address that?
I would agree. I think that in general, therapy is more, talk therapy, where you come in for a session and we use that time together to really dive in and kind of identify how to best use that hour, typically that hour, and kind of do process work and work through some issues. However, I do find that it's beneficial to give clients, I call them self-work assignments in between sessions. And sometimes that can be journaling. Sometimes it can be, back to the archetypal pattern. Sometimes it can be, going out and playing and taking care of the inner child that we all have. And so it really is dependent upon what what we're working on. But I do find that there's a lot of benefit in doing some self-work assignments in between sessions.
I agree. I agree. So there's a similarity.
Yes.
We're both part of a team. People need to have team and support. So we play different roles, but we can be on the same team. Any other similarities you want to mention?
I think the other similarity is we both, coaches and therapists, are both coming from a very empathic place of support, and also in that empathic place, kind of challenging and nudging and you know, being able to call people out on their stuff, and be able to help them see their patterns that are keeping them snagged and keeping them stuck. And I would see that that is a big similarity and an overlap.
I do too. I think it's our job. If I'm not challenging or stretching or reframing, redirecting, refocusing each client at some point, I feel like I'm not doing my job. Um, Nicole, as we start to wrap up, is there anything that you feel like you would like to share or talk about that we haven't covered?
I think one of the things that I recommend with all of my clients that come in with depression, I always recommend that they follow up with a medical doctor.
Okay.
Oftentimes, the first line of defense with depression is antidepressants, and I kind of cringe at that. I think that my community sometimes falls short in that area, and oftentimes people can treat their depression through balancing their body. And so I recommend meeting with a medical doctor to have their vitamin B, vitamin D, their thyroid, their hormones, and getting all of that looked at and checked out, because oftentimes that can be the piece that's really preventing people from moving forward. And so in addition to the therapist and the coach, I think another important person to bring on somebody's team would be a really good medical doctor that understands the overlap of mental health and physical health.
Right.
And so that's something that I really, really stress to all of my clients, and is my first line of defense, is referring people out to a really good medical doctor to get all of that checked out as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I also have an arsenal of naturopaths,
Yes.
homeopathic doctors, and doctors who now are working, like Dr. Rick Henriksen, who is at Kestrel, who can work online with people. Because if something is within the mind-body scope, you quite often cannot go to one place and get the answer, because your body's unique, your situation's unique, and it's like you have to connect your own dots to figure out your own puzzle. So I think that's really good advice. Okay, Nicole, if anyone would like to get in touch with you or learn more about you, give us your website, talk to us about how people could find you, maybe an email. How can people connect?
So I would say the best way is my profile on Psychology Today, which is the letter C, Nicole Lovejoy. That would have access to my phone number and my email, and a little bio and description of me and what I do.
Excellent. Excellent. And then for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lynn Christian. You can find me at SoulSalt, SOULSALT.com. And you can also email at info@soulsalt.com. I really appreciate your time today. I know it's been fun for me to just get to talk to you. One last thing I want to say is I had the honor of talking to Sir John Whitmore before he passed away. He's sort of the father of coaching in the UK. And he said that the dynamic of coaching is basically this two-step. And I know he's written his book, Coaching for Performance, and a lot of people think the GROW model is the whole gist of his work. But he asked me, he said, Lynn, what do you think is the crux of my work? And I told him what I'm about to share with you. And he said, thank you. People think it's the GROW model. So Nicole, just the last thing to respond to, what Sir John told me and what I surmised from his book was, we're in the helping profession. So our job is to help raise awareness. And then after a person's awareness is raised, ask them, now that you know, what will you do with it? Do you think, again, that that's a common trait between you and I?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think that we are energetic beings, and that really working to raise our vibration so we can help impact others and step into a deeper, more rich, fulfilling life. Absolutely.
Awesome. We are in the same community, therapy, coaching, helping profession. We do distinct jobs. We can partner. And I so appreciate knowing you and knowing that my clients that I care so much about can have another bright star on their team when they need it. So thank you for your time today, Nicole.
Thank you. It's such an honor. Thank you.
You.